Microsurgeon. Imagic, 1982. I've mentioned that I love exploration-based adventure games. For some reason, searching for things, finding them and destroying them, or using them to advance in some way, is a paradigm that I find gratifying. By adventure games, mind you, I don't mean computerized role-playing games. I'm glad so many of them exist, as they clearly bring great pleasure to a lot of people. To me, however, they often bring monotony, no matter how diverse the scenarios. This frame of mind concerns their nearly universal, ceaselessly replicated turn-based action. In countless games that center on RPG elements, I'm not going to count them anyway, you can't properly begin to explore, or even depart from the village, town, inn, dairy farm, or brothel, or whatever, until you've visited the person who knows what the plot is. He's always centered against one border, and upon enlightening you, this oddly benevolent king, wisest sage, wizard with the tallest hat, master postman, chief restroom attendant, etc., advises you to go outside and ask pedestrians for things that will help you, in the event that you ever get to leave. If he were truly in charge, he could surely get them to stop by with these items, but he wants you to do all the work. So now you gotta walk around and pester complete strangers until you've acquired the magical sofa cushion of protection, the enchanted soap dish of infinite storage, and the spork of infected wounds. Now you can get going. You can even begin to explore. For 2 seconds. Then you're halted by what amounts to a dice-rolling phase. I can buy bones and a notebook if I want to get into that sort of thing. As a matter of fact, I find role-playing games to be a lot more fun in real life. What an ironic sentence. I'm not talking about real life, of course. Can you imagine strolling right up to some guy on the street and demanding that he hand over whatever he's carrying? While you're unarmed, I mean. It wouldn't even work with broads, no matter how charmingly you might behave. Open your purse, I need some coins for my journey. It's important to our entire block that I succeed. Hey, put away the pepper spray. Talk about rolling the dice. You'd have to leave town at that point, I would think. Now, one of my favorite Intellivision games is Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, which was eventually subtitled Cloudy Mountain, in order to differentiate it from its sequel, AD&D Treasure of Tarman. Curiously, the former is not an RPG. It involves exploring networks of subterranean caves. Each of these lights up to reveal its shape and contents when you enter. It's an exceedingly appealing movement scheme. The ROM was the first in an Intellivision cartridge to surpass 4 kilobytes. It had 6. Now I'm certain to discuss that game later, along with my favorite shoot-'em-up on the console, the Dreadnaught Factor. I'm prioritizing rarely featured games though, as well as a handful of new takes on unquestionably familiar ones. Another favorite is Richard Levine's Microsurgeon, an exploration game in its own right. It happens to take place inside some guy's body, but I'll take uninterrupted by dice adventure wherever I can find it. It was later converted for the Texas Instruments 99 4A and the IBM PC Junior, making it the game released for perhaps the weirdest particular combination of platforms in history. My ongoing fondness for the game is partially due to my finally fulfilled, decades-long curiosity, as I only saw screenshots back in the 80s, in Electronic Games magazine and so forth. It looked quite different from anything else, very strange and very neato. When I read anything about it or saw stills, I wondered how a video game could possibly take place inside what appeared to be a vivid anatomical model. Even now that I've learned how to play it and found it to be pretty damn good, it continues to hold that intrigue. The strengths outnumber, and in any case outweigh, the weaknesses and slight graphical hiccups. It's an interesting, inspired game. By the way, the company's name sounds like the word imagine. This is merged with magic. I've heard it mispronounced, and while it's not a terribly significant detail, I just wanted to get a snooty correction in here. You don't actually play as a shrunken surgeon. It's not quite Fantastic Voyage like that way. You endeavor to heal the patient from within by remotely controlling an injected, minuscule vehicle, the robotic probe. You're not only a doctor then, but an electronics hobbyist as well. You're certainly not messing around. You shoot everything that's ailing the chap. That's one way to go about it, I suppose. You then leave it to another doctor to deal with the hemorrhaging. I wonder if one can buy remote-controlled robotic probes in real life. You could play some awesome pranks. That's funny, I could have sworn I was lactating for a second there. I prefer to start the game by pressing 6 on the keypad. This sets the difficulty to intermediate and confronts me with a random patient. The particular configuration of things from which he's suffering is different during every game. When I care about my score, I keep resetting until I see an overall condition of serious or critical on the status screen that opens the game. The worse off the poor guy is at the beginning, the higher the final tally, provided that his death is prevented in between. The power readout on the same screen is essentially the amount of time remaining. It counts downward throughout the game, but except on very rare occasions it's extremely fair. More power than the normal time-based kind is lost, however, when the probe collides with one of the nasty things afflicting the patient. The objective is to restore all of the internal conditions listed on the status screen to good. The state of each gut that doesn't start out that way is either fair, serious, or critical, depending on the patient number, chosen randomly or not. Each condition gradually improves as you blast more of its associated physiological bad guys. If you're not fast enough, the items that don't read good will steadily worsen, but those that are indeed fully healed won't deteriorate again. After critical, the gut or biological facet becomes terminal, indicating that it's dead or defunct. Naturally, your finishing score decreases quite a bit in this case, and as far as I'm concerned, it means that the game hasn't genuinely been won, despite your ability to continue playing. Maybe your assistants just stick the patient into the freezer when you've only saved bits of him. Waste not, want not, right? When the game begins, note which things are critical and plan ahead for their related meanies first. Pressing 1 switches to the body interior. The status screen can be checked at any time by pressing 2. During the gameplay itself, screen-sized portions of the body scroll into view as you move around. I recommend pressing 0 right away. This speeds up your probe, which is the small white diamond near the center. Ouch! There must be a lot of scar tissue inside this guy at the end of the game. I'll get this deficiency out of the way, so that we can get back to kicking, well, healing ass. Lag affects your probe's responsiveness along with the collective game speed. You'll sometimes find yourself overcompensating while attempting to stay within the veins, arteries, and pools of lymphatic fluid to which you are restricted. The red, burgundy, and orange routes, in other words, and wind up ramming the probe into the far, quote, wall when things speed up again, triggering an attacker in the form of a white blood cell. Whenever you travel outside of the designated paths, slowly through bone for instance, or into one of the background areas of mysterious bodily blackness, at least one of these cells will float onto the screen and try to crash into you, reducing your power if it succeeds. To prevent this, you are obliged to stop and shoot it. Well, cure it until it's dead. Designated paths. My odd wording has activated my smartass gland. Okay, folks, during our tour of the innards, please stick to the designated paths, or things will get gross pretty quickly. Note the sign. You have to be under this tall to be allowed into the patient. And no graffiti. Roaming phagocytes be damned. It's often more expedient to slog through the substances that you're not supposed to touch. Yes, you move more slowly, but it still beats adhering to the appointed passages when they take you the long way around. With some practice, it's easy enough to zap the intermittent white blood cells. Each of these will only change direction once, if it has failed to collide with you during its first body crossing. While we're on the subject, there's some pseudoscience here, as real white blood cells will only try to fight off biological intrusions. Then again, people aren't really shaped like this inside. It's a good thing. Imagine trying to get comfortable at bedtime. To be honest, considering the way in which the patient's guts are arranged, he has far more problems than we can possibly fix with a tiny robot. The bottommost item on the status screen, denoting the inclusive level of infection, is obviously not a gut. That represents the amount of bad bacteria plaguing the body. There's no mistaking these crawly things. The patient appears to have swallowed a bunch of green spiders. Maybe he was hoping to acquire superpowers and missed some crucial points. Your default weapon is the ultrasonic ray. You blast nearly everything with this, including the white blood cells and the slanted gray things. Which are lumps of cholesterol. This isn't the good kind that you receive from eggs, so its elimination improves the heart's condition. It's found blocking arteries throughout the body, but the stomach and brain usually contain the highest concentrations. The patient has been thinking about fast food far too frequently. The collision detection between your ray and the cholesterol is extremely unhealthy. It's another thing that you can get used to. By the way, the problem exists in emulation as well as on real hardware, to judge from the online films that I've watched. Healing the lungs entails shooting the tar deposits within. The guy's not a smoker, he sniffs tar. When both lungs have been suitably cleared out, their mutual condition will progress to good, leaving you free to deal with the other horrific things inside this out-of-shape man. In truth, a cigarette would be a tremendous alternative to whatever he's actually been doing to himself. The kidneys are the rounded sections that look like cozy parks through a bird's eye. Stones need somewhere to take their kids on weekends. Nevertheless, they must be shot, sparing the patient extreme urethral discomfort in the future. This is the part of the game in which you truly feel like a hero. Likewise, stones can plague the nearby gallbladder, which looks like a swimming pool that's been used by a lot of kids. To improve the condition of the brain, you'll want to zap every existing tumor. That's one of the gray splotches, often about 80,000 times apiece, as they each involve multiple shots and try to grow back right away. Your default weapon reduces the tumor's size as you shoot it, but you have to do this repeatedly from close up if you don't want to lose a lot of time. Well, either they're tumors or this guy's been shoving baby squid up his nose. To give the intestines a hand, as it were, shoot the tapeworms lurking therein. Mercifully, the playfield doesn't scroll below that. Things could become very unsettling. I'm almost certain that there's no air freshening weapon I haven't noticed. And can we all feel grateful that there wasn't a sequel? Where could Levine have gone from here? Microsurgeon 2. Colonoscopy. I'd hate to see that box art. You've got 2 other weapons at your disposal. All 3 are selected via the keypad. Launch antibiotics to wipe out the bad bacteria described before. These pests remain stationary, but they erratically appear and disappear. They prolong the game more than anything else, as you have to shoot them twice a day for a week. Aspirin, your 3rd type of artillery, is required only for eradicating the very occasional virus that flies swiftly toward you from one of the borders. It looks like you're throwing a pill at the light green creep, and there's a capital A within, just so it's perfectly clear what you've discharged. Thankfully, there's no detection problem with the white blood cells or viruses. Since they're moving, they were wisely prioritized in the program. Those two varmints burrow nonchalantly through all the guts between themselves and your probe. Considering the damage this must cause, the patient's insides are surely full of holes by the time he wakes up. At least I hope he's been put to sleep. On the other hand, if he's conscious while all this is going on, he probably just feels a bit itchy. You don't want to leave the body until the condition of everything inside it is good. If you're playing for score, exit through your facial orifice of choice, rather than simply puncturing the skin elsewhere. In spite of the allegedly microscopic dimensions of the probe, the latter kind of departure takes away points. The nose is my favorite means of egress. Even at my age, anything that looks like a cartoon booger is funny. Adding to the humor, your score is displayed as a bill given to the patient at the end. Depending on the difficulty level you have selected and how well you've done, it can stretch to 9 digits. When he has seen it, of course, you have to operate again. I have a lot of fun playing Microsurgeon, which is obviously all that counts. Sometimes it's cumbersome, but it's thoroughly inventive. I doubt very much that it was designed to teach anatomy to young people. Maybe Levine doesn't like kids, and was simply trying to give them nightmares. Speaking of him, you can see his first name just below the head. That's the most easily found Easter egg I've ever seen. The game contains some crafty sound effects. For instance, the lungs respire and the heart beats as you approach each of those general regions of the body. It's also nifty that even in the variations without chance conditions, your slimy targets are positioned randomly, bound only by the guts in which they belong, when applicable, and their movement or materialization patterns. There's no liver problem to contend with, so at least drinking is one thing this guy hasn't done to himself. Even before taking a look at the final score, one feels the urge to lecture the patient. Take better care of yourself, will you? You should have seen it in there. I couldn't make heads or tails of things. Try to develop some better dietary habits at the least. You appear to be an intelligent man, given that your brain's bigger than your stomach and intestines put together. Alright, the next game is Space Hawk.